Hello and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for the tardiness. I had to reboot my PC. I was botting a little bit, and thanks to Jamie letting me know that before we went live. Well, we're 4 minutes late, but that doesn't mean you're not going to get 90 plus minutes of awesomeness because we have three incredible topics to get into. And first, let me shout out Joey, Mr. TTS himself. What's up, brother? He, of course, is from, or well, he's one part of WBG with Dirt Griggity and the guys. So, Joe, we appreciate you being here, brother. Hey, everyone seems to be sick. I'm still dealing with COVID, which kind of sucks. But hey, Jamie Moran, you missed last week because you were under the weather. You're still not 100%, but we're glad to have you back, kind sir. Welcome.
Hey man, happy to be here. Yeah, the chest infection's still here, which is a great way to start the year. Everyone's sick at the minute, my God.
Jesus, yeah.
But gaming wise, it's been good. Plenty of good things to talk about. You know, we had the developer direct since the last show, and I've been playing Final Fantasy VII Remake. Finally,
Yes.
Square Enix were nice enough to give me a code.
Nice,
They
dude.
must
Well
have seen all the
deserved.
port begging over the past 6 years. But yeah, happy to talk about some gaming, man.
Oh man. So shout out to Be Nice in there. What's going on, brother? How you feeling? Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm playing it also. I'm very much enjoying it. I actually bought it not only on, well, I already owned it on PlayStation 4, right? I bought it for Xbox and I just recently bought it, and for some reason or another, it's selling out everywhere on Switch too. The physical edition. It's the craziest thing. I've never seen anything quite like it. But yes, I bought it for the Switch. It should be here on Friday, and I'm gonna play on both Xbox and Switch too because I really do love Final Fantasy VII. It's my favorite in the series, and they did a really incredible job with this. I cannot wait to get further into the game. I'm hoping to see that they have brought back a lot of the the supers, if you will. Like, I don't know if Knights of the Round or any of the other ones like Hades comes back in a big way. I have never made it that far in the game, but if they do, I'm here for it. But look, ladies and gentlemen, we are awaiting Infinite Umbra to join us. Hopefully he does. Obviously, he works midnight, so we are sometimes, he falls asleep and doesn't get up. So if he's not here, he probably will join us on Friday mornings breakfast with Boom. But Jamie, look, we have a lot actually to get into, but one of the topics that I really kind of want to sink our teeth into to open up today's show is the update. Well, the console UI like update that has come the way of the Xbox app. Now, again, this is something that we have been waiting for. And the reason I bring it up is because WindowsCentral.com did a story, which I have in front of me. And look, if there is one thing that I think we can all say, is that Xbox out of the three platforms is the one that's forward facing, and they're trying to future proof their own brand. I think they're leaps and bounds ahead of Nintendo, and I would say quite a few steps ahead of PlayStation when it comes to giving consumers more ways to play the games that you either own or play through your service in Xbox Game Pass. And I don't think enough people, especially in games media, Jamie, give the credit where credit is due. Well, I have that article in front of me, and no, let me just read the post on X. And it says redesigned xCloud gaming hits public preview. And according to the Windows Central post, it says Xbox is testing a redesigned cloud gaming experience on the web, and we got to try out the new public preview. At first glance, it should feel familiar to anyone who has used an Xbox console. It's simpler, easier to navigate, and makes getting into any game feel a lot more straightforward. And quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, it looks absolutely stunning. But Jamie, look, again, it's just a preview. It's what they have discussed. You've heard Phil talk about it. You've heard um, um, the president, Sarah Bond, talk about it. You've heard the best beard in the business, Jason Ronald, specifically talk about this UI to rule them all. And even though this is not the biggest topic of the show, it is an important one because, folks, look, the truth of the matter is that when you say Xbox Play Anywhere, right? Some people thumb their nose at it. Some people don't understand exactly what it is. And what you're getting with this Xbox Play Anywhere are a multitude of layers. I think first and foremost, that jumps right off the page and should jump off the page for at least you as the consumer is for me, I am actively, and you've heard me say this before, looking for games that interest me that specifically have the tagline of being an Xbox Play Anywhere title. We talked about it last week where Resident Evil 2, 7, and 8 were added. Final Fantasy 7 Remake is one of those games as well. It's important, folks, because nowadays, Xbox is giving you the ability to play your game, well, anywhere, right? You're playing on your console, thumbs up. You're playing on your PC, awesome. If you want to go and sit on the couch while you're hanging out with the missus or the kids and you want to play on your ROG Ally, you can do that. And having this one UI to rule them all, I think is brilliant. I think it's super important. I think it is way faster than I originally thought we were going to get it. But Jamie, let's get your thoughts on this new report from Windows Central.
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft's been pushing Play Anywhere for a very long time now, since I think 2016, and it's gotten better over the years. But like they've needed a better gaming UI on PC. They've needed a better UI for streaming, and if they have like the most integrated, ecosystem when it comes to playing games and owning games, like you can buy a game that has Play Anywhere, like Final Fantasy 7 Remake, and you can play it on your PC. You can play it via streaming, which is like just a bunch of different options for people to play these games. And in the future, there's going to be more kinds of devices, such as touchscreen devices. You have the ROG Xbox Ally devices. There's a bunch of other PC like handheld things, like the LG something, I can't remember its name.
Yeah, that came out years ago, as a matter of fact. Yeah,
like a bunch of these like new handhelds are going to be getting these like UIs, which is it's just going to make gaming easier. And I think we see the PC handheld space growing a lot. And I think Microsoft, they want to capitalize on that because their gaming UI on PC hasn't exactly been the best. We all know that, but it's came a long way compared to what it was a couple of years ago. It used to be bare bones. It used to kind of just be like a bare bones Xbox One user interface, kind of, if that. And now it's really usable, tons of features, and whether you play it something streaming PC or Xbox, it all kind of looks the same and it's all familiar, and it just works, which I think Microsoft's been wanting to get to for a very long time. And I think the cool thing about Microsoft is that if you bought a game, let's say like on the original Xbox or a 360, your saves continue to work across these devices, Xbox One, Xbox Series consoles, cloud, and then you have Xbox One and Series games that work on PC as well as your saves. So like having all that work together, you have people like look down the nose at it thinking, oh, well, what's the point in this? It's like we live in an era where almost every device is going to be capable of gaming. You have smart TVs with these streaming apps and whatnot. So like I think just it's giving people more ways to play games they own. And if anyone looks at that as a bad thing, I mean, I don't know what to say. There's no pleasing them. Do you know there's people that bought, let's say, Super Mario 3 on the DS?
Dude, I mention that game all the freaking time because I'm not. Listen, I know that I'm being a bit facetious when I say I've purchased the game 17 times. That is a little excessive, but I've probably bought Super Mario Brothers 3 around 7 times, honestly.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest examples. It's a bloody good game, but like if you bought that on the DS or the Wii, you can't download that game and play it. Like I'm not I don't have a Switch, so I don't exactly know how the system works when it comes to like the backwards compatibility. But it is just streaming, right?
Yes. Well, let me add some additional context from Windows Central, something that they posted, and I will read from the article. And again, anything that we do use for the show, ladies and gentlemen, of course, will be added to the show notes. So if you want to give it a click or a read yourself, you can in fact do that. But here is what Windows Central added in an additional tweet. We walk through the new interface and the improvements are noticeable right away. If you use cloud gaming even occasionally, this update is worth a look. If you've tried the new Xbox Cloud Gaming web experience, they want to know if you like it. Let us know in the replies, and if you don't, why? And of course, I have the full story here, but this is what the full story says. Now, first of all, this was written by Adam Hales. It's published yesterday. Xbox's redesigned cloud gaming web experience enters public preview, and it's a big step forward for a more unified device agnostic ecosystem. And look, this is what it has to say. I'll read, I'll hand you the mic in a second. Let me just read verbatim from the article. It says Xbox has officially unveiled its new cloud gaming web experience. And at first glance, it should feel familiar to anyone who has used the Xbox console. The layout closely mirrors the console interface, making it immediately approachable, and eager eyed fans may notice it resembles the data mined UI that leaked a couple of months ago. That said, this is a public preview, and all things, of course, could change. Even in its current form, it represents a clear improvement over the existing web experience, both visually and in how it flows, which makes it an encouraging step forward. So I hope that answers your question, Jamie.
Yeah, I mean, oh, what's this? Okay, so yeah, I think Microsoft have been aiming to do this for a very long time. We have more PC handhelds coming out soon, touchscreen devices, mobile. Like, as someone that's tried to use like streaming on mobile, I don't like the user interface. But that said, I don't like most user interfaces on mobile, so that's a me problem. But like they've came a long way when it comes to this stuff, and it's good to see. And if anyone complains about being offered different ways to play a game they already own, I don't get it. You buy a game once, you can play it across different devices, and that's a good thing. If anyone has a problem with that, I mean, it's probably one of these people that wants to pay more for video games. Weirdos.
Look, I mean, my thing is this. My answer to your particular question is whether they're gaming weirdos or they have deep pockets or limitless pockets. If you want to buy a game and you're in a chat and you bought a game 17 times, good for you. If you can afford to do that, that's awesome. But I actually think that what Xbox is currently doing, the steps that they're taking forward to unify their brand, right? Look, we know they're going third party. Perfect example of that is the fact that PlayStation and Steam are going to be getting Fable and day and date, and then for PlayStation more specifically, Forza Horizon 6 later this year, right? We know they're doing that. For the Xbox consumer, which is vast, right? We know that there's over 30 million series consoles in the wild. We know that there are millions of people that are currently still playing on the old Xbox hardware. Will they eventually upgrade? Who knows? But here's where it gets interesting. Xbox is going to continue to do things that are going to I don't want to say make people want to play an Xbox, but it's going to give you, like, if you are a PlayStation player and you enjoy that box, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. Now you're going to have the ability to buy Xbox games on this box, and this year you're getting bangers. What's being fed to the PlayStation players from Xbox Game Studios is unlike anything before, and we know that Xbox is the biggest publisher. Okay, this is the deal. In regards to what they're doing with cloud gaming and unifying all of these different ways to play, they're giving you the ability, Jamie, to play your games anywhere. I think that needs to be talked about.
Yeah, I mean, look, every device is going to, you're going to be able to play your games on it, right? Mobile phone, these new handhelds there's a new one out every other week at this point. TVs, right? It's not like how it was 10 years ago, how you had consoles, you had PC, and you had Nintendo doing the Switch thing, right? It's like everyone's doing the whole game and everywhere thing now. And if you'd asked me 10 years ago, if you said, "Oh, who's doing gaming, like handheld wise, other than Nintendo?" I'd say no one. I think most people would say the same thing. But as we've seen, and I think the Steam Deck really opened up a lot of people's eyes. Like, oh yeah, you can
Yeah,
have a
I
good
agree.
gaming device that isn't made by Nintendo, and be able to play different kinds of games on it. And look at the Steam Deck, right? Most people that probably bought a Steam Deck already had a massive Steam library, right? They bought a Steam Deck. They didn't have it. They didn't buy it for any particular new game. They just bought it because they wanted to play their games on the go. That wasn't in let's say, an overpriced gaming laptop, right? And Microsoft, they're saying that with their own games as well. And if you, a lot of people, most people have PCs. Everyone has a phone. I feel like I'm quoting that, uh, you know, that Blizzard thing, but everyone has a mobile phone, everyone has a laptop, everyone has a PC or whatever. Like, it's just more options to play the games, Like, hell, there's a game on Game Pass I play on my PC all the time called Human Fall Flat. It's
That's
a
a great
weird
game, dude.
physics-based game, and
Yeah,
I enjoy it, and it's way easy to play with a keyboard and mouse. Believe me. Um, and I play it that way, and my save sync across my Xbox and my PC, and I love that. It's just more options for people, and I think people should be open to that. You mentioned the multi-platform thing. This a bit of a tangent, right? I've noticed people will flip their lid every time the term or like PlayStation's mentioned at the end of an Xbox trailer. Now we've known for a couple of years this is happening, right?
right.
We all know, right? And some games are going to be there day one, some aren't, right? There's people that still violently, like, react to it online, right? Like, people are acting like it's a breakup, but they're acting in the worst possible way. They're not just going through a little bit of grief and then getting over it. They enter in a stalking stage, right? They cannot let it go. They're constantly talking about it. We know which people I'm talking about on social media. They can't shut up about it. Every podcast they do, it's the same topic every single week. Xbox is doing multi-platform things, blah 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 blah. It's the end of Xbox. Think about this: Microsoft has the best first-party lineup 2 years in a row they've ever had, right? And people are talking about them like they're dead. you know,
Yeah,
Microsoft has more
ridiculous.
games ever than they've put out before, and people are saying they're dead because they're giving you more options to play them. And I saw this post the other day, and you've probably saw it as well, Boom. If these games are going to other platforms, what's the point of owning an Xbox? And that is actually a very
Yeah,
good. That is a very good post, or a very good question, shall I say? Crap post, but it's a good question. But the thing is, like, why would, like, if you own an Xbox and you in the Xbox ecosystem and you like Xbox games and you have a huge library of Xbox games, right? And you play games in Game Pass and you save thousands of pounds or thousands of dollars each year because of Game Pass, and you play the first party games, but you also put your money back into this the ecosystem with the money you've saved, right? To all of a sudden leave the platform to go somewhere else so you could spend even more money, you know, on the games
it's
you would have been like on the games you would have had to begin with, doesn't make any sense.
right.
And look, all these companies, they always have these ups and downs when it comes to releases. Nintendo's had lows, Xbox has had lows, PlayStation has lows, right? Why would you buy an Xbox or play these games on Xbox if you can get a PlayStation? The truth is, what is PlayStation putting out? Let's say for me specifically, which would make me want to buy the platform, right? What have they got coming out this year? I don't like baseball. I don't even understand baseball. They have that Soros game. I don't like roguelites. And Wolverine. Wolverine looks cool. So, like,
Yes.
am I going to flip my lid, switch platforms because of one extra game? No,
I'm gonna say probably no, but you
probably
know
not.
what?
And guess what? I'm probably going to get a PlayStation 5 at some point, and that'll be a game I'll play, right? it's not the end of the world. Some people in the gaming space act like it's the end of the world. And yes, and me and Booms talk about this a lot. Negative Xbox stories, negative Xbox stuff gets you more clicks, right? If you post a thumbnail with you like holding an Xbox controller with a cringe face and saying Xbox dead, in super high contrast red, that's going to get way more clicks than, let's say, hey, look at all these games coming to Xbox. By the way, this game has this feature, that feature, and what. Like, it just is, right? It's by the way, and it is January. January is when ad revenue is at its lowest, so you're going to see more clickbait. Congratulations, now people know. So you're going to see a lot more Xbox is dead content, even though they have the most games coming out, right? Microsoft ain't perfect. They've messed up all the time. I want them to continue doing backwards compatibility stuff, right? I want Nintendo to make more original IPs. I want PlayStation to make more variety. People will go back and forth all the time because of, like, the console war stuff. And by the way, I exited the console war crap years ago. I think it's tiresome. It's boring. People still do it on a daily basis. Right, like Logan. Sorry, Boom. You should have seen some of the replies I got to my Final Fantasy posts, man.
I did see some of your replies, and most of them were ridiculous. By the way,
yeah,
and like, scary.
And by the way, Square Enix gave me a review code because they saw value in what I have to say. These assholes didn't get anything because they do the same thing over and over and over again on Twitter. Do you know what we call that? The definition of insanity. They do the same thing over and over and over again and expecting something different to happen, right?
Yep.
Same console war rhetoric every single day. Microsoft messes up, Sony messes up, Nintendo messes up. It's life, right? Microsoft, as we're going back to the original topic, they're offering you more ways to play a game you own. That's beautiful, right? I like the fact that I now own Final Fantasy VII Remake on Xbox, but I could play it on PC if I want. I could play it on cloud.
Yes.
Pun intended, if I want.
You can play it on your ROG Ally if you have one. There you go.
And like that's great. And if anyone has anything to complain about, I don't know what to say. And I said before, are they weirdos for wanting to pay more for games? Yes, they are. Like, burn money, why don't you? But look, it's a great option. Microsoft came a long way with the UI. Sorry for the tangent.
No,
maybe it's the chest infection getting to me, or the painkillers. But honestly, it's all good.
Look, in closing, because we have the Fable topic we're going to go segue into right after this. Why choose Xbox? Right, that's the running narrative, especially now that they have officially, third party in big games like Fable and Forza Horizon 6 are going to be on PlayStation this year. Well, I have 4 bullet points here, and it's really all you need to know. Xbox Game Pass is tip of spear, right? You pay for your service. You can upgrade if you want to play early, like, Forza Horizon 6, or you can simply just play through your subscription. You don't have that on Nintendo. You don't have that on PlayStation. Xbox Play Anywhere is a big driver. That's what opened up this topic, and I really do think that is the future of gaming, giving you, the consumer, the power to play your game that you purchased or that you use through your service that you pay for anywhere you have a screen. That's a really big deal. Smart delivery is still a big deal, right? Generations of backwards compatibility. There's going to come a point where everything is going to be a part of it. And to be honest with you, this is something that Jamie talks about all the time. Quick Resume is the unsung hero of this generation. I don't care what anyone says. I think that it is brilliant. It works great, especially someone like me who does dabble in a lot of different games. And Jamie, you've even done videos. You go game to game to game. It works seamlessly. Does it work perfectly? No. But does it work most of the time? And have I had many problems with it? Not really. So if you needed a bullet point breakdown of why you should play an Xbox, I hope that really does answer all your questions. But Jamie, we got to get into the next topic. And why I'm excited for this one is because of, well, Fable. I know that, you obviously got a chance to see exactly what I saw. And, look, we learned a lot of things from the developer direct. But I don't think we've actually had a chance to kind of just sit back and go over some of the things that were in this incredible direct that not only answered a lot of questions, especially when it comes to like the character creation. I think that was a big, big question. Now, the other question that I looked for, it has not been discussed. We don't have an answer for it. I know people in the chat may even start asking about it, is whether or not it's going to have a 60 frames mode. Now, I don't know if Paris, who's in the chat, by the way, got any information that he could share with us, because sometimes, he keeps his ear to the floor. I know that he literally just said the funeral for Xbox is set for 11/15/26, which of course is the 25th anniversary, and Xbox is going to celebrate that with a funeral, confirming the death of the brand. So of course, shout out to Paris Lily for the jokes as always. But look, I have something that's in front of me that I want to get down, discuss, and these are some bullet points that, again, folks, we're just gonna have some fun with this because, quite frankly, there is a lot to get excited about. I think that Playground Games has done everything I could have wanted personally for this game. I don't know so much about you, but Jamie, before I hand over the mic, here are a bunch of bullet points that came out the way of this direct. And of course, they confirmed that you can get married and have kids, which is freaking cool. And you did that in, of course, the original Fables. You can buy houses and businesses. Again, this is something that is going to make this game live on for a very long time. There'll be a full character creator, which we just discussed moments ago. You can talk to every NPC in the game. That to me is crazy. According to this listing, there are thousands of NPCs, and they all have daily schedules, which is crazy. There is a reputation system very similar to the original. It's the first true open world Fable, which, again, what I love about this is the idea that gamers who are going to talk about this game, whether it be by the water cooler, because we're old men, or online in podcasts, we're all going to have different stories. Did you find this? Did you go here? Oh my goodness, I found this weapon. I found this armor. I can't believe it. There's going to be stories very similar to like Starfield, where, and I always bring up Pong Soul. He found this desolate ship that had an aliens like, mission in there. It was a creature. It got loose. It killed the entire crew. I never found that. He told me where he found it. I flew to that planet and could not find that ship. I think we're going to have stories very similar in Fable, and I freaking can't wait. Well, it goes on to say this: there's going to be seamless travel with no loading, which I cannot wait to see. Choices that you make as the player have been confirmed to affect the actual world that you are living in. You can become a landlord, which I don't know if I'm going to do. You can evict tenants and make them homeless, which, if people want to be evil, I'm sure they're going to do. NPCs will judge you by your appearance, which is wow. Okay. There's now this is great when you start talking about what you're going to be using. There are 1 or 2-handed weapons. There are bows. There are magic bows, and there is a ton of actual magic that you're going to be able to yield. Jamie, look, I can keep going, but I want to get your thoughts on this. Look, for me personally, I said early on and late last year that my most anticipated game, for me personally, being an OG, is Halo Campaign Evolved. That has moved a little bit because as great as Forza Horizon 6 looks and is going to be. I got to be honest with you, for me personally, and I got to get the chat involved in here and see what you guys and gals are saying. Fable's my most anticipated game, not because it's a new Fable, and it's only that. It's what Playground Games has done with it. They have taken everything that I could have wanted for modern graphics and put it into a game that I absolutely loved on the Xbox 360. And they have kept the charm. They have kept everything about Fable that made this game Fable from the 360 days, and they have modernized it. And it looks like a game that is going to be epic in scale. It's going to have a lot of complicated decisions you're going to have to make, some good, some bad, somewhere in the middle. I don't know, man. I know that I'm nerding out on this thing, and that's what we have podcasts, at least in my opinion, to do, is to get hype for these type of experiences. And we're getting it this year. I don't know what else to say. Jamie, let's get your thoughts on this, man.
I mean, look, I'm looking forward towards Gears because, I think Gears being a linear style game works best. So it's going back with Bruce. Forza Horizon 6 going to Japan. I've wanted them to go to Japan since the beginning. So, I'm getting that. And it looks like we're maybe going to get some Gundams, which is going to be lovely.
Yes.
Kiln looks like it's going to be a bunch of fun. But, Halo, look, Halo Combat Evolved, I've played probably at least 40 times. Right, I'm being modest with that number as well, right? Am I looking forward towards Campaign Evolved? Yeah, but it's a game I've played like 40 times, right? It's just going to look prettier. I'm excited for the extra missions, which is going to be cool. But for me, it's Fable. I love Fable. Fable 2 for me is one of my favorite games of all time. It was such a magical game when that came out, and there was nothing like it. When the new Fable was announced, right? I want Witcher 3 style storytelling, Witcher 3-esque combat, but I wanted Fable 2 style game mechanics, right? I didn't think that's what we were actually going to get. When Fable was announced a couple of years ago, I thought we were just going to get a traditional third-person fantasy RPG, but with Fable style, themes. I could not have been happier with that showcase because you could tell. And by the way, they acknowledged Lionhead several times in that video, right? Which is something I love when developers do when they acknowledge the previous developers. And they are sticking to what Lionhead did right about the Fable games, right? Fable 2, right? You could have relationships, you could have kids, you could have, you had your dog, you could get STDs in the game. It was beautiful, right? It was weird, but you could. And there was nothing like it. Fable 3, you could basically own every single building in the game, and there was a physical representation of how much gold you had in the game, where you had this gold room.
Yes.
And literally you could have this mountain of gold. There was this trick on the 360, by the way, that if you went to your gold room, saved, turned your Xbox off and switched the date to 2026, right? And then loaded the game back in, and your gold would adjust for the amount of time you haven't played. So you'd have interest, and you just have a huge pile of gold, right? But I didn't expect those kind of game mechanics to be in the new Fable. So while people had the jaw on the floor of the graphics and people were losing the marbles over a somewhat character creator, I was shocked that we're getting the ability to have own houses, form friendships and relationships with people like Fable 2. I didn't expect that. And I think, they're absolutely going to deliver, right? The fact there's over 1,000 NPCs in the game, each one made by hand, that has their own unique personality, that has their own daily routine. And I love that crap when it comes to games. And, we always see this thing in made up leaks about GTA, how you're going to be able to go into 70% of the buildings, right? I don't think anyone really cares about that stuff. It just seems like a bit of a gimmick thing. But with Fable, you own houses. Right? You can buy them, you can rent them out, right? So being able to go in a lot of houses makes sense. And it's going to be a fun time, and I think it's going to break the mold for a lot of people that have never played a Fable game or never played Fable 2, because Fable 2, I think Fable 2 was the only Fable game that wasn't on PC. And
Yeah.
I think, a lot of people are just going to fall in love with that universe, because we haven't had a Fable game since 2010. I'm not including the Kinect game. Because I don't think many people played it, and like I'm one of the few people that played Fable Legends, by the way. I
Oh.
think I could talk about that now.
Yeah, you might be able to. Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
can
think
talk
you
about
might be
that now.
okay.
Like, that game was beautiful, by the way, absolutely beautiful. But it was that was out in that era, where the entire game industry was obsessed with the 4v1 mechanic. I don't understand why companies were doing that, especially with Fable. But it looks like Playground Games to knock it out of the park. And like the humor, they've got the humor right. Right, you need that style of humor in a Fable game.
You
And
absolutely
Playground
do.
Games, they clearly
Yes.
know what they're doing. It has the charm, the whimsical nature of Fable, and like it's got everything I wanted. And by the way, every single post, and these posts are still up, by the way, every single post I've made about Fable since it was announced has had some absolutely awful replies. Awful replies.
Wow.
Right? You can imagine what about, um, people complain about what the main character looked like. I didn't have any complaints, but when they showed off the ability to change what your character looked like, uh, I I'm just sorry, Boom. I'm gonna go off right now, okay?
No, please go ahead. Go crazy.
Um, right. That Fable showcase really brought out the tourists in the gaming community when it comes to Fable. Because if people aren't fans of Fable, if they've never played them, that's perfectly fine, right? Most people haven't played most games, right? There's this weird, I want to call it the Mandela effect in gaming, where people have always thought Fable has had a character creator when it never has, right? You always pick between a boy or a girl. Two
That was
preset
it.
character models. You
Yeah.
could change the
Mhm.
clothes. You could put like a silly mustache on a character, maybe some silly hats, right? But you could never really make a character. So when they showed off Fable a couple of years ago, they never said there's just one character. They just showed off one character. In previous Fable games, that's how they've shown games off, with one character. So every single tweet I've ever made about Halo over the past couple of years, people just angry said, "Oh, this game's gonna flop," blah 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 blah. And then the second they show that quote unquote character creator, where there's different head presets, skin tones, tattoos, facial hair, hairstyles, whatever. When they showed that off, the tone switched. Absolutely
Yeah.
switched. People are like, "Oh, this was the character creator we're all waiting for. I can't wait to play as my created character." Right? So you weren't excited about Fable. You're excited to play dress up. Right? You're excited to play dress up with a video game character because you couldn't get over what a character looked like. This is one of the things I can't stand about Fable. Fable's never had a character creator, right? In fact, I fired up Fable 2 last night. You pick between a little boy or a little girl. You start off as children, right? Much like you do in the new one. And people showed their tourism when it comes to Fable, right? And that really annoyed the hell out of me because, now I'm seeing people get excited about it because of a bloody character creator. Guess what? That game, Playground game showed off, looked bloody amazing, right? It's got Fable 2 and 3 gameplay mechanics, which I never thought would happen. The combat looks great. It's got little Witcher 3 style elements when it comes to the combat, which I want,
Yep.
right? The game looks amazing. And let's talk about its open world. It's the first open world Fable game. And they aren't doing the traditional, how should I put it, open world fantasy style game where, like, if you look at The Witcher 3, and The Witcher 3 is a masterpiece in my opinion, most open world fantasy games kind of look the same. You have mountains, you have waterfalls, all this stuff. In Fable, you have like more whimsical themes going on. So you have like forests made out of giant magical mushrooms, stuff like that. And like this beautiful game looks amazing, right? It's different, right? And I saw people surprised that you can get married in the game. Like people acting like it's a new thing. It's like, no, you've been able to get married in Fable before. It's not new, right? But yeah, I'm very happy with what Playground Games showed off. Fable has a very good future ahead. And I have seen some people complain about the whole your character would morph depending on what your choices would be during the game. So if you were good, your character would get horns and like a little flame above the head. If you were good, you would have angel wings. Very on the nose. And people have been complaining that that's not there. To me, I never really cared about that stuff. It's not the end of the world. But the game looks great. Playground Games clearly knocking it out the park. It's essentially the Fable game I've always wanted, which I thought we would never get. And man, I'm excited. In fact, I've literally downloaded all the Fable games the other day just to go through again, right? Because I'm so excited for Fable coming back. I can't believe it's been 16 years since Fable 3. But
Yeah,
hey,
dude.
it's exciting times ahead. And you have to look at the future, right? Fable's had expansions in the past, right? Now, considering they have a big take, because Fable 2's expansions you could finish in a couple of hours. They weren't really big expansions, but like I can see Playground Games, especially how they've supported Forza in the past. Like we don't even know what kind of support this is going to get. Is this going to get a year of DLC, 2 years of DLC? We don't know, but
Great
considering the
question.
themes and tones of Fable and like what they could do with the magical doors into different worlds, they could do anything. This like Fable went from like maybe top 7 like most anticipated games to me for me. It's like number 1 now for me.
Yeah. I want to actually kind of continue the conversation because you bring up a fantastic point. What we learned, we discussed. I have the Xbox Wire article that goes into like more specific details. And obviously during the event, they talked to the game director Ralph Fulton, who gave answers to some of the biggest questions. And, the one thing that really wasn't touched on was post release support. You mentioned it just now. Now, look, folks, I know that this is maybe it's a conversation you don't want to have. Like, why do we want to talk about this? The game's not even out. But that act, for at least for me, is why it's an exciting conversation to have, Jamie, because you said something that I think was brilliant. Look at all the support that Playground Games has given each one of their releases for Forza Horizon, whether it be 4, 5, or what's going to happen in 6. Like we know that Forza Horizon 6 is in Japan. We know that the end of that trailer, you saw what appeared to be a pair of Gundam legs landing right behind the car that was being displayed. So what that suggests to me is that there's going to be some sort of, and again, this is just speculation on my part, that there could be some Gundam DLC. The first expansion could have to do with being in like a Gundam type universe, which is crazy, right? Because it's Forza. But then you take that ideology and you kind of just move it to the side to where Fable is. And look, we know a lot of what's going to be happening. We don't know too much of the story. We know that you're going to start off as kids, right? Just same as you did for the this is a reboot. Um we know that it's going to have elements of all of the fables. More specifically, like 1 and 2. We know that you can use magic, you can use weapons, single-handed, double-handed weapons, you can use bows, you can use magic bows, which is awesome. They didn't mention the demon doors. I would imagine, I mean, the demon doors are such a big part of the lore for Fable. I would imagine that those are kind of being saved for either another showing, or they're not going to say anything and you're just going to find them on your own, find those demon doors on your own. But the one thing that I kind of want to get your thoughts on is what they could do differently with expansions. Because, obviously, Fable 1 and 2 and 3 were what they were, but this is an opportunity because it's open. It's considered an open world Fable, that there could be regions that you don't necessarily get to, that could be introduced in expansions to continue the game, where there doesn't necessarily have to be a Fable 2 in 5 years, right? Or at least as they're working on what I would imagine would be a sequel to Fable, they would be able to continue the story of not only your game, but somehow use the idea of bringing in DLC through expansions to move into the second game. I want to get your thoughts on that because I think there's opportunity here to keep the story going. And look, we don't know if this is a 60-hour romp, a Witcher like 100 plus hour romp. It's open world. You said it yourself, Jamie, and you're a Witcher guy, so you would know. I'm not. It had elements of The Witcher. Well, it could have elements of The Witcher in grand scale, right? We know that there is a centralized story that's going to have an opening act, an act 2 and an act 3, but it's what you find and what you do outside of that story that has me most intrigued, especially when you consider they could bring in additional content through expansions the same way they do with Forza Horizon, which 6 already has confirmed 2 expansions. Get your thoughts, man.
Yeah, I mean, they could do anything with expansions. Could do different biomes, new complete regions. I mean, if for people that have played Fable 2, like, can you remember the section with the prison tower? They could do stuff like that. They could do really anything. It's Fable, like Forza, not Forza, but Fable in the past, like the expansions have been very small. They've been like Microsoft's expansions back then in like the late 2000s weren't like big. Like even Gears like 2 and 3 expansions weren't that big. But now like single player expansions, like there's a big draw to them. So like they can really do anything. I mean, it is a fantasy game. They could bring dragons into it because, as far as we know, there aren't dragons. Then again, we haven't seen many enemy types. They could do, storylines with werewolves. We could get new expansions set in the same region just with new storylines, like Heart of Stone in The Witcher 3, right? It uses basically the same area as the main game, but puts this amazing new story in. They could do stuff like that. I'd be shocked if we don't see. Maybe they'll do like a Blood and Wine style expansion. I've got Witcher 3 on the mind at the minute, but like they put a brand new region in the game.
Yep.
Completely different to the rest of the game, and the story is completely different. The enemies are completely different. So like I could see them doing stuff like that. I think with Fable though, like I'd be shocked if we don't get 2 expansions for it. It is Playground Games. They do support their games for a long time. Like look at Forza Horizon 5, right? That game came out 2021?
Yes.
It still gets content.
Yep.
So like, it's had a couple of big expansions, but it's getting cars all the time and stuff. And yeah, that's a live service game and it's different, but this is their first RPG. They clearly want to do it justice. And this has been in development for a long time. And when talk about sequels and stuff, and I've seen a couple of posts about different games, like sequels take forever to come out now. If you play a game right now that you love, you're guaranteed you're not really going to play a sequel for a very long time because game development takes way too long now. But with that Forza engine, they've already got that stuff built up that they can like make sequels, make DLC from that. So like, I'm just excited about the future of Fable for Playground Games because when Lionhead was, closed down, I kind of lost hope that we would see Fable return in anyway. And if it did return, I thought it was just going to be another traditional, fantasy RPG.
Yep.
Swords, magic, no whimsical nature, no sarcasm. But that's clearly not the case now. So like, I'm really happy about this. And like, look, I keep saying this in chat. The Witcher comparison I keep making for the Fable game. When I say Witcher, I mean storytelling. Because
Yes.
Fable 2 and 3, I love those stories, but they didn't really have, cinematic cutscenes. There were some, but they weren't like, the way The Witcher 3 does it. The Witcher 3's combat is more intensive, whereas Fable 2 and 3 is more like point your analog stick in the right direction sort of thing. Press X to use your sword, stuff like that. Like when I say Witcher 3 comparisons, I don't mean it's The Witcher 3 with a Fable skin. Like, I obviously don't mean that. But like The Witcher 3 nailed it when it came to cinematic storytelling. It's combat. And you're going to get that, but in a Witcher game, so in a Fable game with the, the whimsical nature of Fable, the sarcasm, the dirty jokes, the overly British nature of that, and it looks amazing. And it's going to have these office style cutscenes. I don't know how that's going to work for a Fable game, but it's quirky, it's British. I love it. I love what I saw. And Playground Games, they're going to knock it out of the park.
I agree, brother. I think that we are in for something very special. I don't think I'm going out on a ledge here at all, chat, where I say I think this is one of the games that is going to be in the Game of the Year conversation. Do I think that it has a better shot being a multi-plat? Yes, I do. I know that sounds that may aggravate a lot of people in the chat. They're like, oh, we don't need it to be multi-plat to be considered. The way that this world works, or the way journalism works these days, I think that because it's multi-plat, meaning that it's going to launch on PlayStation 5, that it has two better shots of getting into the Keeleys, because of course it's going to be on PlayStation 5, and more people on PlayStation are going to play it. And what ultimately does that mean? That means that more journalists who are PlayStation centric gamers and reporters will be able to say, oh yes, I played Fable and it is a 9 out of 10. It is a 10 out of 10. It's everything I could want in an open world game. And because of that, again, people, you don't want to admit it, but that's the truth. So if this gets Playground Games the title of best developer in gaming because of that, then so be it. But we'll see what happens. I have high hopes and very high expectations for both games that Playground Games is releasing this year, and Fable has now become one of my most anticipated. But Jamie, before we get into, of course, the next topic, I got to catch up on super chats here. So we got a couple. Mac22 drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, "Boom, you forgot Play Anywhere." I mean, I don't think I could ever forget that. I think that it really, look, I said this before, Mac, and I'll say it again. Xbox has changed gaming multiple times in multiple generations. And of course, your mileage is going to vary on the importance of what they've done versus mine. I always go back to that E3 announcement of the Xbox 360 backwards compatibility on the Xbox One. It's a moment that I talk about. I get goosebumps talking about it. I go back every now and again and I watch Phil Spencer on stage and the eruption of the crowd. I'm an Xbox nerd, so it makes me happy. It's just something that a lot of no one was doing, and they did it right. You go back to some of the other things like summer of 2017, where Xbox Game Pass comes out, and everyone was thumbing their nose out of it. They said it was going to ruin the industry, and you've heard all the rhetoric, and all they've done since the inception of this service that was, considered a Netflix for gaming, is improve upon it every year. Every year they continue to invest $1 billion in this thing, and they're making money because we know they made $5 billion from Game Pass alone. Now, again, I say this all the time. The money part doesn't matter to me. What it matters to me is they continue to add games of every ilk, of every style, of every genre, of every size. And they're doing something again to the industry. Forget it. Again, if you want to add smart delivery and quick resume, those are great things. But Xbox Play Anywhere is a really big deal. It's the best and one of the best consumer-facing forward programs. That is something they've been working on for a real long time, and now it's hitting fruition. Now you're going to be able to literally the idea of playing a game that you bought as a consumer on any screen that you have available to you is just pure madness, but somehow it works. So thanks so much for that. I hope that answers the question, brother. And thank you for the $2 super chat. King Webb, my brother, salute to you, kind sir. King Webb drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, "Are you going to talk about the new Game Pass UI, bro?" I don't know if it's is there a new Xbox Game Pass UI that I missed, because the UI I was talking about was for cloud gaming. If there is one, we'll probably talk about it either tomorrow or Thursday. I got to check that out, brother. Brett Bingham drops a very generous $2 super chat and says dual wielding weapons would be a cool new feature. They didn't mention that, but yeah, I think that would be kind of dope as well. I like that. But look, Jamie, we got to get into the last topic of the show. And this one comes the way of Ben Carey of PureXbox.com. They wrote an article, and it basically is talking about one of my most anticipated games that we have seen multiple times. And I am standing on this square. I know Paris is probably going to roll over or roll his eyes at least. Clockwork Revolution coming in 26. Man, I sure hope so. Well, the Pure Xbox article basically it talks about Clockwork Revolution, and the dev, of course, which of course is In Exile, talks choice and consequent in its upcoming steampunk RPG. And In Exile says they have that the game itself very much hangs its hat on reactivity. So let me read a little bit of the article for context, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to get into it, because I think that even though we have not heard much since last June's showcase, which again, it looked even more polished than we saw it before. And, you know, there's going to be some people in the chat, and maybe even Paris himself, that says, where do you put a game from In Exile in 2026? Because right now, if I had to be a little bit of a complaining kind of an a-hole, I would say that not having any first party games until May, when Forza comes out, is a bit of a mistake. I know that they are super loaded for the second half, but man, I would love to have had something like last year's, you know, Avowed in February. Now, I'm not suggesting that Clockwork is coming out in February. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying, again, I'm asking the question, where would you put this at the end of the year? I honestly don't know. But, Jamie, before I bring you in, Ben goes on to say in his article, Clockwork Revolution is one of the most exciting Xbox Studios titles being built over at Microsoft HQ right now. Despite the team keeping things largely under wraps so far, Phil Spencer has expressed his personal hype for it, and we're right there with him. Desperate to see some more of the steampunk RPG. Well, a new interview with In Exile's Brian Fargo has gotten us even more excited for the team's next gameplay showcase. And speaking with Games Radar, Fargo has talked a little bit more about Clockwork Revolution and how the team will, quote, bring the level of reactivity from its isometric titles into something first person. So here is some quotes from Brian Fargo, and he goes on to say, In Exile very much hangs its hat on reactivity. For me, role playing means I can play a role and I can actually affect the world around me. If all path leads to the same outcome, the immersion is broken, and you'll start to feel like you're just playing a game rather than living in one. But when the world is consistently reacting or reflecting your choices, both in big ways and just as important in small ways, that's when immersion really sets in. He goes on to say this, Jamie, anytime you're playing with time mechanics, Sands of Time is going to come up. And we did hire one of the key artists from Dishonored, so that aesthetic influence is real. We seem to be striking a lot of different chords, which I'll take as a compliment because they are wonderful games. But the actual genesis of Clockwork Revolution was far simpler. We wanted to make a steampunk RPG. Look, all I can say is the more I read about this game, Jamie, the more excited I get. And look, it's In Exile. It's another new IP out of Xbox Game Studios. We know the pedigree of this studio. This is new for them, the same way that Fable was new to Playground Games. And we keep seeing this happen time and time again. As a matter of fact, right now, a new Activision studio, which we're going to talk about later on in the week, is working on an open world RPG. And we don't even know what that RPG is going to be. Could it be about Call of Duty? Could it be a Call of Duty RPG? I don't know. But whatever it is, I'm hyped. But let's get right back to In Exile and Clockwork Revolution. Jamie, I want to get your thoughts on what Brian Fargo had to say in this interview.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to Clockwork Revolution. I'm an RPG guy, right? It's basically what I ramble on about 90% of the time anyway. Yeah, this game looks fantastic. I mean, it's a steampunk RPG. We haven't really had any games like this before. Whenever I say that, I always get at least one reply going, but what about Bioshock Infinite? It's not a role-playing game. Simple as. But the game looks fantastic. You've got combat that looks like a mix between Singularity.
Yes.
A very actually, the combat alone is very much like Singularity. If people haven't played it, it's a World War II esque time manipulation first person shooter game. Really good. If anyone ever gets a chance to play it, I still think Microsoft needs to make that game backwards compatible. By the way, my God, you own the game. Like, make it BC. But yeah, it looks like that. I mean, you have like character customization. They haven't showed any of that off yet, but you have like, I love steampunk, by the way. We don't get a lot of like steampunk or cyberpunk in gaming, like in the AAA space. But this looks fantastic. You know, you're gonna have deep character customization. Your choices are gonna affect the world, big and small. Like, not just like some small things in dialogue. Like, the world will look completely different depending on your choices. You know, even like when it comes to like weapon customization, right? Like in Exile, they've always had unique stories to make. They've always had cool games, but they've always been held back by their budget, right?
Yes.
They came out with a game, I think it was like 2014. If I remember correctly, it was called Tides of Numenera. And that game, it was set 1 billion years in the future, right? Where technology and magic is basically the same thing. And that game was clearly held back by a tiny budget. I think that was a Kickstarter game.
Wow.
And like now they have the full backing of Xbox. This is what they can make with a full budget. This is their first modern AAA game, and it looks fantastic, right? This is what they can do. You know, their games have never had the best combat because they haven't really had the most resources. This game has deep combat, your weapon customization. You can change basically everything on every weapon. If people like steampunk, you're gonna bloody love the weapon customization in this game. Uh, and it's just something different from In Exile. You know, this is their biggest, most ambitious game yet, and they've been making it for a very long time. When they first showed it off, they actually had like, I think it was like 30 seconds of gameplay. Then they went
It looked
quiet for
phenomenal
2.
way back then when they first showed it. And last June, it looked really good.
Yeah, yeah, they showed off like 5 minutes, I think, last year, and it looked really good. Like, to me, I'd be shocked if that game. I think so. My prediction right now, um, I think, you know, Microsoft, they tend to have a direct after their summer showcase. They had one for Call of Duty last year. I think. Oh no, sorry, it was for the Outer Worlds, I believe,
Yeah,
last
Outer
year.
Worlds 2. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was.
and
Yep.
I think the year before it was Call of Duty, but I think this year it's going to be Clockwork Revolution Direct, and
Oh,
then
that would be great.
I think it'll release somewhere between August and September. You know, GTA being the scary game coming out in November, like, we're gonna see a lot of developers give that a wide berth. So, like, I think that's gonna be August or September. I do not think that game can be years away. It just doesn't seem like it. We've seen gameplay too many times too early. I don't know. Something doesn't add up. But like, the game's coming along nicely. In Exile, they make some really good stories in their games. But again, they've always been held back by their budget. And you know, one of the things we talk about before is like, you know, Game Pass, you know, it eliminates the risk element when it comes to game development, because like in the AAA space, I think, you know, gaming's kind of stagnant a little bit, right? big companies don't want to take risks because these games cost hundreds of millions of dollars, right?
Yep.
And I think, when it comes to Microsoft, like these games, they're big, but with Game Pass, they can make something risky, right? And that's why you have something like this, right? It's a AAA steampunk RPG, right? With uh, maybe immersive sim elements, right? I think a lot of people that would never have played this will get into it because of its combat. And I think it'll be one of those cases where, like, look at Expedition 33. Yeah, that's a double A game, but like a lot of people got on board with that game because it was in Game Pass. Like, oh, I didn't like turn-based combat, and then they actually gave it a go, and then they loved it. And I think that's one of the good things about Game Pass is that they'll try different things. This is a steampunk RPG. A lot of people will give this a go because it's in Game Pass, but people like you and myself
Yeah.
will play this game regardless because it's in Exile. It's an RPG. It looks great. It sounds great. The story alone, like I love games like Mass Effect, Dragon Age, all that stuff where your choices influence the things throughout the rest of the game. Well, in games like this, it's going to do that big time. The whole world looks completely different depending on what you choose, your actions and whatnot. I keep going back to the combat with Singularity because maybe I'm just depraved of wanting to play Singularity for a long time, but the combat alone looks exactly like Singularity.
It does have a very similar, and you know what's funny? When I'm like you, whenever I get an opportunity to talk about Singularity, I do. I was hoping that they would make that backwards compatibility,
Yeah,
backwards compatible. I don't know why it isn't already. I thought for sure that after the deal was closed, that we would get games like that, games like Prototype. Now, listen, we don't know what's going to happen, but you know what's interesting? I have a couple of quotes here from Phil Spencer specifically talking about Clockwork before we get everyone out of here. Phil goes on to say, regarding what Brian Fargo has shown, because obviously this was a big part of last year's Xbox showcase. They showed off a number of in-game gameplay mechanics, things that you can do, the weapons that you talked about you can change. Phil says this: you knew that they were going to set the bar very high for themselves. I think what you see now is the ultimate manifestation of an in exile game. I think we all probably get a little bit blown away by the level of graphical fidelity, right? The game looks amazing. And I mean, look, he goes on to say, we start crafting the show in December. January, and when we first started to get some sight into what NXI was building with the trailer, I knew it would be one of the real standouts in the show. So that what we saw was a super early build, and quite frankly, it looked stunning. Like, Phil talks about the graphical fidelity. I mean, what was on display looked insane. And look, I know there are some people in the chat that are saying there's no way that this game is coming out this year. And I'd agree with you there. I'm not going to fight you on it. We've seen the game. We don't know how far along the game is. Like the original article to start this conversation suggested, Brian Fargo and the team over at NXL have been keeping things real close to the vest. So we don't know a lot. The question is, when do you show this game again? Is it at the June showcase, Jamie? Is it at the rumored, thanks to Jez Corden, that that Xbox themselves is kind of kicking around the idea of doing another developer direct? Do they do one where it is Gears of War, which I think has to happen? Do you add Halo? Do you add Clockwork Revolution? Do we see State of Decay 3? Do we see something like Fallout 3 remake get in there? Prototype remake supposedly is happening at some point. At least that's a rumor. Do we see it there? There is so much that could happen. I mean, we're only in the first month of 2026. We have 11 months to go. And quite frankly, the roadmap for Xbox is just redonkulous. But I still think that there's a spot. And like I said, I'm going to stand on the square until proven wrong. I still think that there is a spot for this game to come out. It's an RPG. Yes, there are a lot of RPGs releasing this year, but how many are steampunk first-person RPGs by Anexile? Well, as far as I know, there are one, and it's by them. And I think that it does have a space, even though Fable is coming out, even though there's a bunch of other RPGs coming out. I still think that this game could release this year, but we will see. And any final thoughts before we get out of here, Jamie?
Yeah, whenever we talk about like upcoming games and whatnot, I always look at the chat because there's always one or two people calling me out just for whatnot. Like we're only talking about like what we think's going to happen and whatnot. Like
Yeah, it's
everyone in chat-
hypothetical.
yeah, hypothetical. But like people will disagree with me and say that they're right. So like I think that Microsoft are going to have a Clockwork Revolution direct, right? That's what I think. But people will in chat will say, no, I'm wrong. They're going to have one about gears, right? Like, okay. And guess what? If either happen, I still win because I get to play these games, right?
Yeah, that's
I don't
right.
care. Microsoft have so many games coming out; they can have multiple directs in the same year.
They
Like,
should actually, no doubt about
yeah,
it.
they should. And like I think like whatever comes out this year, it's all good, right? Like if Clockwork Revolution doesn't come out this year, that's fine. Fable, Gears, Forza, Call of Duty, which we think is Modern Warfare 4, Kiln, Halo campaign evolved, Gears. Like I'm good with what's announced, and you have the Fallout 3 stuff, which is rumored to come out this year.
Yeah.
Like whatever comes out, I think people are going to be happy. 2026 is looking amazing. So like, whatever happens, it's all good.
I absolutely agree. And listen, what a way to end the show. I know that normally we go a little bit longer. Normally it's a little bit more than 90 minutes, but obviously we didn't have Infinite Umbra. So, he's probably either not feeling well or, he worked late or something. But maybe we'll get him in on Friday morning's Breakfast at Boom, which I'm starting to write that show. Then, of course, tomorrow evening, we're going to have Everborn Saga joining us to talk about some of the big news with PlayStation 6 not coming until 2030 and how that kind of opens the door. He has a thought and theory into how that's going to open the door and why the RAM situation for Xbox specifically is not concerning as it is for both PlayStation and Nintendo. We were talking this morning, and he brings up some incredible points. That's one of the topics for tomorrow. And again, I have to continue to write that show. So yeah, of course, there's primetime gaming tomorrow at 7 p.m. I'll be sitting down with C Money as normal on Thursdays, X Vlog Live at noon, and of course, to close out the week will be Breakfast with Boom Friday morning, 10 a.m. Hopefully, you guys and gals can show up. And again, I put out a couple of videos. I have a State of Decay video that's going to be going up later this afternoon. Definitely check that out. We got some new information about State of Decay 3, which I think could show this year. I don't know if it releases, though. We will certainly see. But, Jamie Moran, I want to thank you for hanging out with me. A big thank you to the chat for being here. A big thank you to all of the super chats, channel member chats, and gifted subs that continue to come into the channel. Of course, Mrs. Boom and I will always be grateful for that financial support. And Jamie, let's sell the brand, brother. Of course, tonight is going to be the new episode of the All Things Xbox podcast with you and Logan Meyer. I don't know how many topics, but quite frankly, there's been so much news. I would not be surprised if it's 10 plus, maybe even 15. Sell the brand, brother. Where could people subscribe to the Elusive Gamer YouTube channel? But more importantly, follow you and check out tonight's live stream.
Yeah, thanks, Boom. It's always a pleasure. So yeah, All Things Xbox podcast finally returns tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern on the Elusive Gamer YouTube channel. We're going to cover the Ubisoft stuff, which is going to be interesting because there's been so much Ubisoft stuff over the past week. All the things shown at the Xbox Direct. Going to talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate in depth, obviously. Going to talk about some Mass Effect as well. Shocker to no one. Now I do have 2 videos coming out soon, maybe 3.
Okay,
because
nice.
I've had the crappy chest infection for weeks. But yeah, biggest games coming out to Xbox this year. It is, and after a lot of re-edits, a lot of research, this is the definitive list of the biggest games coming to Xbox this year because, believe it or not, in the past week, most of the release dates changed on a bunch of the games. Damn you,
Wow.
game industry. But yeah, so that should be out tomorrow, and I should have another video out next week as well. It's going to be a busy week ahead because I'm trying to make up for lost time. But anyway, all these videos I've been making for the past couple of months. Hope people enjoy them. So yeah, Elusive Gamer, Xbox YouTube channel. Hope people enjoy the content.
Well, thank you, brother. Super appreciate you joining me today. And of course, yes, please tune in tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for the new episode of the All Things Xbox podcast with Jamie and of course Logan Meyer. It's a good show, folks. They don't use hate rhetoric to sell the brand. They simply have fun talking about, well, Xbox, which is what we're here to do. Again, folks, thank you so much for all of the well wishes through DMs and of course in the chat. I am getting better. I'm not 100%. I'm not going to get back into the gym this week. At least I don't think I'm going to, the way I feel. But I'm, going to be here still podcasting, and hopefully I can get back on the saddle, so to speak, next week once COVID gets the F out of here. But ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for us here for the new episode of the Xbox Factor podcast. And for Jamie Miranda and myself, I want to wish everyone a great afternoon. Enjoy gaming on whatever console you enjoy gaming on. And of course, I'm going to close out the show with something that's incredibly important to me, folks. Hopefully one day will be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. And he'd say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And we'll see you next week on the newest episode of the Xbox Factor podcast.